Welcome to The Dig on the Huskers Radio Network podcast, featuring Nebraska Volleyball assistant coach Jordan Larson. Here's your host, Jessica Cootie.
Welcome back into another episode of The Dig. I'm Jessica Cootie and excited to welcome in for the first time Olympic gold medalist, national champion, All-American, and now adding to the resume, Nebraska Volleyball assistant coach Jordan Larson. Welcome back, and thanks for being on.
Yeah, it's great. Great to be back. Excited to be back. It's awesome.
How are you settling in? I gotta imagine it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah, I'm getting there, slowly but surely. And I've been kind of in and out, so I feel like I have some sort of home base here. But yeah, just getting adjusted, and I've just felt so welcomed. I can't thank the community enough, also the team, and I just feel awesome being back.
That first day as a coach, walking into that gym, wearing that whistle, and being with the team, what was that day like? Yeah,
it was great. It was fun. Again, I've been kind of in and out, but yeah, just great to be amongst the team again and kind of just seeing it from a different lens. Obviously, I played here, but a lot has changed, but a lot is still very similar. So I feel at home, but time has passed. So, and then now just having a different relationship with John and kind of how I can add the most value to this team, and also just being a great asset to these girls, because I'm also still playing. So like I can still kind of really relate to them, and you know I play with girls that are their age overseas. So it's an interesting kind of relationship, and but it's been a great transition so far.
Lindsay Peterson was telling us in the summer that you'd be doing a lot of video, Skyping, whatever you could do to kind of stay in tune with the team. How was that for you? Just trying to stay locked in when you could, but also still trying to play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a good test for me and a good balance. But I think with volumetrics now, I can watch from anywhere, and I think just knowing that I'm there as an asset for them is really important. And then kind of seeing what I'm looking at in video and giving them a few nuggets to get better at. But mainly just kind of touching base and just building that relationship so they feel like they can come to me with whatever they need. So it's been really good. I'm just really appreciative of John for giving me the opportunity to kind of do both. And I'm excited to kind of get into the full swing of like what actually coaching is like and being full-time. So I'm really excited about that.
How has film watching evolved for you from when you were a player to where you are now, and now having to see it in a coaching lens? Yeah,
no, it's definitely evolved, right? I think back then it was like VCS tapes or whatever. They were actually called, I don't even remember.
VHS?
But VHS, there we go. I was like, I don't even know what they're called anymore. I'm so used to online stuff. But yeah, it's so much has changed, and the ability to pull up anything at your hands is really, really cool, and from anywhere. I mean, I was in Poland, like watching videos. So it's really cool, and to now see the assets that they have, I'm just curious, like, obviously, like, our national team's really good, and like, what's the degree of how well we could have been, like if we had this like earlier on. But yeah, it's great, and yeah, I don't know, it's been awesome to see them evolve and just get better, even just in the short amount of time I've been helping. So
first Big Ten road trip of the season, and man, was it entertaining. The back-to-back at Purdue, at Indiana, some wild and crazy environments. Overall, how'd you feel like the team handled the first back-to-back on the road?
Yeah, I thought that they did a great job. I thought we did a good job of front-loading, of like trying to set the intention of, hey, there are 2 sold-out crowds, I think, and I think Indiana, the first time that they had ever sold out, something like that. So we knew it was going to be intense, and I think what makes other gyms different is like people are closer to you, so they feel like you're on top of them. And so I think understanding that it was going to be a bit of a challenge, but I thought we did a good job of managing that. And unfortunately, I didn't travel this week, but watching from afar, it seemed like we handled that quite well. So I'm really excited to obviously been in the gym yesterday, and I think we're a little fatigued. I think it was just a heavy weekend, but I'm really proud that we're building some equity and some grit, which was really cool to see from afar.
The messaging all year has been that, not talking about being young, but you do have a lot of freshmen. That was their first road experience.
Yep.
Do you remember your first road experience? It's got to be different. I mean, a little bit shocking, a shell shock to go into an environment like that. As much as you can prepare for it, I don't know if you can really be prepared for that.
No, definitely. And I think it's, as much as you talk about it, you kind of have to experience it, and you have to go through it. But I think it's, how can we get them best prepped, and it's learning how to see the game at a high level, and knowing that like it's all the same, right? I think when I think about my first time even at the Olympic Games, it's like, oh my gosh, it's the Olympic Games. But when you really boil it down to, it's the same court, same ball, it's just a different environment. So getting acquainted quicker, right? Like how can they adjust to Purdue, how can they adjust to the gym, quicker and get on the same page? But at the end of the day, it's like I do this every day. I show up and I do my job, and that's the mindset that I would like to instill from my experience to them of just like, you do the same thing every day. It's just a different environment,
Oh, what a weekend for Merritt Beason,
Yes.
Big Ten Player of the Week, career high 22 kills against Indiana. What'd you think of her play over the weekend?
Yeah, she's great. Just all around, obviously great player, great person. And it's her work ethic sets a standard, right? And I think she approaches every day the same, and you see that in practice every day. So it doesn't surprise me that that's showing up, and will probably continue to show up. When you put in the work, the payout is usually there. So I'm really proud of her, but obviously she probably knows without her, the team, right? I think ultimately we're playing really well as a team, and the credit to the team as well.
I talked to her a couple weeks ago after the Kentucky win, and she talked about, they changed her approach a little bit, maybe is a little hard on herself, is wanting to play more free, and I think you've seen a little bit of a switch.
Yep.
What's that process like as a player when maybe you do have all these expectations, but then having to come to the realization that, hey, I just got to have fun and let loose a little bit?
Exactly. I think sometimes there's this fine balance between when you're learning a skill, right? And then when it becomes just almost you're in a flow state, right? So it's I'm making these small adjustments, like she's talking about her approaches, but at the end of the day, you have to go out and just play. And I think we can get caught up in all right, well, my foot's not like this, but you just got to let it go, and hoping that what the time they're putting in practice shows up. And I don't know, I just think that mindset shift is hard, but I think she has the capacity to do it, and a lot of our athletes do. It's just being aware and acknowledge what's actually happening.
Is that sometimes hard, again, with all the pressures that you have and the social media and the instant reaction? I mean, has that been a process for you too? Just, the pressure that you put on yourself, but then having to remember, this is at the core of it, we're playing a game. And
Totally.
For me to be at my best, I have to remember to not overthink things too
Totally.
much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can't not think about those things, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's what can we control? And I can control how hard I work, how good of a teammate I am, how much I communicate. Those things are solely within my control. And if I only focus on those kind of things, you hope that the rest fall into place. And then if they're not, then you start asking questions. All right, well, what can I do better? How can I do better in this area? But if you get caught up in outside influences or what someone thinks or, what the media thinks, it's going to deter you, or it's going to make you play smaller. And so at the end of the day is how can you get your mind wrapped around the things that are fully within your control? And it's not a lot, right? So and I would rather, for me personally, when I think about when I go to bed at night, I want to think about, all right, well, what did I do today that was solely in my control, and how much energy am I spending on things that are outside of my control?
Oh, I love that. When you're watching, so I had Kelly Hunter on, and I was asking her, are you mainly locked in on the setters when you're watching games? So are you mainly locked in on the outside hitters when you're watching?
Usually. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of focusing there and passing libros, kind of thing like that. But in general, how I look at the game just as a spectator, right? I'm thinking the whole piece, right? How is the game flowing, right? There's momentum shifts. I think there's strategic things that can be done at the time of play. And so as a spectator and as an athlete currently, I'm thinking whole pieces, but now solely focusing on the outside hitters, libros and stuff.
And what are you looking for in those? I mean, if that's what you're coaching, what are you kind of trying to see how the game's going for those guys? Yeah,
I mean, I think there's certain situations that, reads can happen, but also it's if we're continuing to make the same quote unquote mistake, how can we correct that? And what's the most efficient way to correct that with not so many words, right? I think it's how can we simplify it that makes it easier for them to adjust and make that change on the fly? Because sometimes when you're mid-season, making changes is really hard, right? There's this difference between being a learner and then being an athlete and going out there playing, right? So how can we be most efficient with how we're communicating? And so I think just overall awareness, all right, we're doing this. There are situational things that can be changed, but then also kind of narrowing that focus for them so that they have real points on how to get better.
What's been your perspective on Bergen Riley and how she's continued to evolve and build that chemistry with all the hitters and attackers? Yeah,
I mean, you look at her and she just unfazed, right? Unbothered, and she's just so steady. You would never know winning or losing, like I don't, even in practice, she's just so steady, but like wants to compete, right? And I think as a setter, like those qualities, not just skill, right? She's not aside from skill, right? I think she's a very skilled setter, but for me, when I watch her demeanor and how she holds herself, and it's almost like, hey guys, I got us, like we're here, and I love that in a setter, and I think that goes a long ways, and also making your hitters feel comfortable and bulletproof.
When and why and how did you decide that you wanted to get into coaching?
Yeah, I love the sport so much, and it has given me so many things. And I think about all the coaches that have helped me along the way and how big of an impact they've had. And I think that I just love being in the gym. I love watching film and understanding, and how can I articulate now all the places I've been, all the coaches I've experienced, and how can I articulate to them like what could help them, and I know I have a lot to learn in this space, but I love being around the sport, and I also just want to give back because it's really given me so much.
So what was that conversation like with Coach Cook when he was like, hey, you want to come join the staff?
Yeah.
That had to be pretty surreal.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And we've been in conversation for not just this last year, but years past, when I thought I was going to retire, and I was looking into kind of transitioning out, and so that conversation had been open for a while, but now I think the conversation that was a little more complicated is like, hey, John, I want to come coach, but I also want to keep playing, so like, can we work something out? And he's been awesome, but it's been great. And again, I feel like this university has given me so much, so how can I now give back and kind of share what I've learned all around the world? I think the game around the world is also different, so now how can I share that?
Yeah, that was one thing right when it was announced when you were going to be joining the staff, I was sitting down with all the freshmen, and it was so cool to see their reaction, especially someone like Harper Murray that really looks up to you as a role model. What does that mean to you? How special is that for you to still be inspiring generations of Husker volleyball players?
Yeah, no, it's surreal. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps now. I don't know why, but I think it's because I think of myself, right? Like, I was Harper, right? I was a 12-year-old little girl in the state of Nebraska that wanted to play at the university, and I wanted to be an Olympian. I didn't know what that meant, and I think now to see just where the game has taken me around the world and all gotten to know so many people, I never would have fathomed, and I'm just so grateful, and I really try not to take it for granted, because so many people were instrumental in my career, and now it's like, gosh, now I want people to see what can be done in the sport, right? I think there's a ton of possibility, and the growing of the sport now even more. And now I want people to do better, right? Like, how can we as a national team continue to win gold medal? Like, because we have the capacity, right? Like, we have the talent. The United States has the talent. Now, how can we continue to grow that and have people come out better than I was or have the opportunity to be, Oh,
that's amazing. How much potential talent is on this Nebraska team?
It's unreal. It's so cool to see, and just I love, like, we have this like swag about us. There's this grittiness and feistiness, which I think as a competitor, like, that's why you play the game. It's like we're there to compete, and I get fired up every day to come in because I love seeing that, and hopefully we can continue to grow that and foster that, because I think that's really huge.
You think there's some potential on this team? I know it's a long ways away, but maybe for some of these young Huskers to maybe play on the Team USA someday?
Yeah, oh, most definitely. Yeah, for sure. I think there's definitely high potential, and a lot of our girls have been in the pipeline, right? And I think even back to when I was starting, right? I was in the pipeline for a while, and I think that's kind of where it starts, but also you have to put in the time and work and all that stuff, but I do see very much a lot of potential.
All right, let's talk about this weekend. Another road swing at Michigan State on Friday, at Michigan on Saturday, which, again, Michigan, that's a game that's going to be very emotional for Harper, playing her sister. But what goes into preparing for another back-to-back in the Big Ten conference like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously this last weekend really prepped us. I think we have a good understanding of, all right, how did our rest recovery go between two games, and how can we maybe be better and more efficient this time? And I think they did a good job from the sounds of it. So I think understanding that, and then also I think the mental piece that people maybe don't realize, even at the international level, right? It's like when you're playing back to back, it's a different ball game. You don't have a day between to kind of kind of let your mind sit. You got to be on a high like for 2 days in a row. So I think just acknowledging, all right, it's another grind, and how can we continue to be better? And I think the greatest thing about being in a team sport is you have girls around you that can help you, right? So I think it's one, asking for help, and hey, two, like what do we got to do to be better here? So.
I know it's one game at a time, and you're probably focused on this weekend, but have you thought about your first game back, your first match back as a coach inside the Fanny?
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, of course, and I love coming home, and just every time I've come back, even, Hall of Fame weekend, after winning a gold medal, like, it's just warm welcome. So I'm excited, and but ultimately I'm here for the girls, and I'm just excited to see us compete and see how I can help in any way.
Love that. How about your first experience in the Big Ten on the road?
I know, it's going to be, I know, I'm like, I was talking to, I actually sat next to an alumni on the way, I was flying back from Chicago yesterday, and she was like, she's turning 30, and she was like, well, my freshman year was like this first year like in the Big Ten, and I was like, oh my gosh, that just ages me. I'm like, I was like, I haven't even been in the Big Ten yet, so it's going to be cool. And she was talking about some locker room on, like, she's like, about this locker room, it's so, and I'm like, no. I don't even have an experience of that. So I'm kind of excited to see like the different gyms and locations, just because I never had that experience as an athlete. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as a volleyball person, you love the sport. It's got to be exciting for you to get to experience.
Totally, yeah, and just to see fans from all over the country, and I think to see how much volleyball has grown across for even when I was in school. So it's cool.
So did you watch then the 92,003 game? Did you get to take all that in?
Oh my gosh, yes. I was sadly in Canada at the time. But two of the other former Huskers on the team, we pulled it up, and we got chills like from where we were. So I can only imagine like what it felt like in the stadium. But I think the coolest part is that I had friends from all over the world. They're like, what's happening in Nebraska? What's going on? And I think it not only was a statement for Nebraska, but for women in sport and what it has done to the world of volleyball. And like now, like the capacity is huge. So it was really cool to see all my friends like, what's going on? What are you doing there? I'm like, oh, it's Nebraska.
It's Nebraska.
It is what it is. Yeah.
I give you chills though. Again, just like you said, women in sports. It was a talk, and we're still talking about it.
Exactly.
Over a month later, and we're still seeing the records being broken. So he was just, as Tyler Hildebrand said, just a huge ripple effect, which is really special. It's been special to watch.
Totally.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
And have fun on your first Big Ten road trip.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
All right, for Jordan Larson, I'm Jessica Cootie. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Dig. Make sure you're subscribed and liked wherever you listen to never miss an episode.